We have a full house. Thank you for joining us today. Ms. Gaynor, please introduce our visitors. Don't screw it up.
Whoa,
No pressure.
Well, there's so many here.
There are. I'm going to start back here with our cameraman, Jake Hardy from Channel 6. We have Barry Maka over here under the window. He's our general counsel. Mike Taylor is internal auditor. We have Kyle Owen, who is our associate vice president for facility services. Chris Stovall, who is our controller. Matthew Park, who is associate vice president for student affairs and dean of students. And then I have a guest today who is Media Zahiri from Trainer Architects. And then back here in this corner, we have Cody Samples. He's with Campus Watch. Next to him is Dr. David Carlston, who is chair of the Faculty Senate, and Randy Kirkpatrick, who is our chief information officer. Jim Hall, who is PC Network Services manager. Rebecca Stogner, who is our SGA president. And next to her is Michaela Williams, our SGA observer for the day. And we have Dr. Deborah Garrison, who is our associate vice president of academic affairs and dean of the graduate school. And then we have Dr. Martin Camacho, who is dean of the Lamar D. Fane College of Fine Arts. Newman Wong, who is here with the staff senate. Dirk Welch, who is chair of the staff senate, and he also serves as the director of career management center and testing services. We have Dawn Fisher, who is our director of human resources. Cindy Ashlock, who is the executive assistant to the president, and Charlie Carr, who is our director of athletics.
Wow. You tried to mess her up, Charlie. All right. Just a reminder, this meeting is being streamed live on the internet, and I would also like to mention that we've added some technology to the boardroom to provide a better experience for our internet viewers. We have cameras there. We have cameras there.
You cannot hide.
I would like to acknowledge and thank Cindy Ashlock for her work and our IT people in handling all the details for this upgrade. And if you're really nice to her, she'll make sure the cameras are facing away from you as you speak. Just kidding. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. I would also ask that individuals not seated at the table to move near the table when they are answering questions or making presentations, so we can make sure that you're heard for those that are watching online. Provide an opportunity for public comment concerning agenda items at the beginning of each meeting. No one has signed up to speak, and we'll move on with our agenda. Item 1502, MSU organization chart. An updated organization chart was sent to you, and an explanation of changes is shown in the intended document. Does anyone have questions or need further explanation on this document? Did you guys get a chance to take a look at that? Pretty self-explanatory. Okay. If we have no questions, then we'll move on. This item is presented as a point of information only. Discussion of higher education issues. Again, this is your opportunity to discuss current issues and trends in higher education. And I believe the next item, a bunch of other items on this agenda will cover higher ed issues. I really have nothing to add to this particular point. This is, as I've said before, our opportunity to, as a board, openly discuss anything that's on your mind about higher ed issues that you may have seen in the last quarter. But as I also pointed out, we're going to cover a ton of those things in several of our agenda items today. Anybody have anything they want to discuss before we move on? Okay. Item 1504, MSU priorities. We talked in August about Dr. Rogers and the administration putting together a top 10 list. And we've asked Dr. Rogers to present this information regarding this top 10 list for MSU. A document was sent to you yesterday, and a copy is in your folder. Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You, in fact, did. The board did ask me to prepare a top 10 list. I've given it a lot of thought. It's really difficult, but as the staff got together, and we spent about 4 hours on October 28th looking at the strategic master plan that you all have a copy of that outlines in great detail a lot that must be done to maintain the quality of Midwestern University and advance it. We also are well along our way on the campus construction master plan. It's not complete yet, but we've really started on some of it. We've had to because of timing. So we tried to mesh those two and pick out 10 general items. We had a long, I think, and really profitable discussion. And you will notice that what we've done is tried not to some degree, it's important that we put some of these in priority order. But the fact is you pick out 10 items to guide this administration, this board, future boards, and future administrations, that a lot of these items are going to be continuing concerns for every administration of this university and every board of this university for the long term. Many of them will be done simultaneously. Many of them we must wait on the opportunity, and we must consider timing in some cases. So some are crucial. We have to be very active with them. Others we realize that the timing is going to be determined by certain types of funding, and you all are well aware of how that funding can change and opportunities do arise as a result of gifts or as a result of change in state policy. But after looking at everything, we think we have a list of 10 different categories that are going to be a continuing concern and are of immediate concern for the university. And I will go over those. They're annotated in your document. I want to cover just a few of those comments under them, but we have picked out the following. Top 3 items really that we have to pay attention to immediately and in a continuing way is the campus master plan, its completion and execution. It is short-term and long-term, and we've started on that, and I want to comment on it in a moment. We separated out bravely another item that's going to be part of this campus. We can't avoid it, but it deals with the budget, it deals with a lot of planning, and it deals with the campus construction high Sam. And that is parking. It must be dealt with, and it must be dealt with, I think, in a wise way and in a timely way and an affordable way, and I'm going to comment on that. And enrollment will always be of concern. One additional student coming to this university means so much more to our operating budget than raising fees, raising tuition a certain percentage each year. So the university needs to grow. We think we know how to do that. We've found out a lot about it, and I'm going to comment on that. Those are 3 things that need to be dealt with now and will be dealt with, and it will be dealt with over time. In addition to that, we must always consider new and we think interdisciplinary academic programs, and I'm going to comment on those just briefly. I think the university's got a good record of having comprehensive academic program that fits the ability and needs of this university and the students around here. We're going to have to do more with distance learning. It is becoming bigger and bigger and more important in higher education. And I will have some comments on that for you in the future, but we do want to expand our distance learning and our distance programming. We're going to have to deal with student engagement and retention. And engagement is a word that simply means once students come here, they engage with the university, they connect to the university. It's very simply, after a semester or a year, they want to return to Midwestern State University and have a reason to do so. This is an issue that is an issue with every institution in this country, and that's the fit between students and the university, and there are things that we can do to improve our retention, and we need to deal with it. We also have some in the top 10 list. We can't avoid athletics and athletic facilities. We've got to deal with that. You've heard Charlie say many times, athletics our front door, and it is. I think it is educationally important. It's the way universities work in this country, or most universities work, and we have to deal with athletics. The branding of Midwestern State University. I finally have accepted that term. It's not a ranching term. It means that we must establish our brand, and we're doing that. In fact, I can tell you the truth. We've been working on that diligently for 40 years. It's not easy, and we've tried to do so in the metropolitan area. I think we've made great strides in the last 10 years, 5 years, but it has to continue, and we need to spread that branding out. Financial planning and budgeting, that will be a continuing effort, and I'm going to mention in a moment that there are things going on in this coming session in Austin that will affect our long-term budgeting model, and it's going to affect this university short-term. certainly for the next biennium. We must also keep up in the area of information technology, and we're going to have a presentation on that today. We have to keep up with other universities and the technological needs of our students. So that's the list of 10. Let me comment on just a few of those. I don't want to take up our entire time today. But the first on our list was the campus master plan. And I think the staff came to the unanimous conclusion that the building and new campus housing and facilities for mass communication and the music program must be placed as high construction priorities, and completion of these projects should serve to increase MSU's enrollment, its student retention, and provide much needed space and quality equipment for the program. I think you're going to be excited when you see the student housing presentation today too. Additionally, we actually came up with a good idea that we'll see how it works out. If we get the funding for the Health Science Human Services building, Ferguson building should be available to us, and we're going to take a hard look at it as a location for some of the offices or crowding in the Hardin South, and as an opportunity to move IT and fix that continuing problem that we really have not worked out in the master plan as yet. It was decided that we have talked about a welcome center in Hardin South, but after a long discussion, it was decided really we need to put our funds, when made available, into Moffitt Library. Moffitt Library clearly needs to be a much more inviting and effective study space, and we want to put our funds there. We think we can make an adequate student visiting center out of Hardin South if we do that. Parking. Let me consider that, and what we've come up with, it's clear that if we build a health science and human service building, that we're going to need an interim parking plan. That plan's been presented to you. Keith's presented to the student body, and I think it's going to work for a while. But depending upon the enrollment, the commuter demand, approval of construction of the health science building, as I said, funding factors that would be known after the legislative session, the administration recognizes the necessity of a parking garage in order to save campus space and provide adequate parking for resident students near student housing. Additionally, the administration concludes that future parking should be based upon residential, commuter, faculty, staff, commuter remote, why am I having trouble with that today, and faculty staff remote alternatives with varying costs. We need a wider ranging parking plan that will be presented to you. Certainly under enrollment, we've made a lot of efforts and we're making some progress in that area. I think a comment on this is the natural tendency for any active administration and caring administration university is to be optimistic always, and we always are, but we also have to be realistic when we're looking at our enrollment projections for purposes of the budgeting. The fact is, we've said that we've looked at our numbers, Maryland's modeling, we are too. We need to grow back to 6,400, 6,500 students within the next 5 years. Seems like a long time. If we get that done, if we increase that many students, it's going to pay huge dividends in terms of our budget. It can even decrease the amount of fee and tuition that we have to increase to maintain this university, and I think we can achieve that goal. Under interdisciplinary academic programs, it's something that we must keep up with. It is easy to add programs, add faculty, add equipment, and basically do nothing but take students from one program and put it into another. I think we've been very good about not doing that. You can't just add programs and increase the enrollment of the university. However, what we can do, and we have space, we have faculty, we have equipment that are available to us, is to look at the new areas that are springing up out there every day with new knowledge and a new way of doing business, and see that we have the faculty that are available, and we need to work on such programs, and we already are, such as healthcare administration, which is a combination of health sciences and business, healthcare education, bioinformatics, which is, say, a combination of biology and computer science, and you know the advances that are being made in DNA studies and what it can tell us. Health informatics, that's a combination of health sciences and computer science. You all hear almost daily about what is going on in areas such as that. And also, beyond what we've already done, energy management, which is a combination of business administration, petroleum geology, or engineering. I won't go on, but I'll give you an idea. That's what's happening in our business world out there, in our work world, that we have the ability to put programming in, and I think that would attract students too. I've mentioned distance learning. Midwestern State University was a leader in the area of distance learning. We were one of the very first students to put in distance education programs in the early 1970s. When I saw the positive results of those programs that were offered in radiologic science and other of our health science areas, I became a real believer in the fact that we could serve students who could not be here in class every day. We're doing a lot. All the health science programs are offered by distance education. Our adult completion program is offered through distance education. We're getting all of the core curriculum on the internet. Our MBA will be up and going on it may be already, Bob.
January.
In January, our MBA is going to be up and going, so we're making progress in that area. Much of the growth in higher education in Texas that you see in other schools is a result of their expanded distance education program. We think we know well enough what students to pick and what programs to pick so we can do this in a quality manner. Student engagement and retention. The surveys that we do of our freshmen indicate that we can do better as far as connecting students to this university. We're not doing poorly. Our retention rate from the freshman year to the sophomore year has been jumping around 70% for decades. It was interesting, and some of you may have seen the article in the press or heard about it lately, that is the case nationally. Some schools are higher, some lower, but the average nationally is about that number. We believe that we need a required freshman orientation program. Keith and Betty and our staff are putting together learning communities. Both of these have been shown to retain students, and we need to do much more in that area. As far as athletics is concerned, we're going to have to look at our athletic facilities. It's really very clear. I had an opportunity to talk to the student executive committee of the student government and student government about athletics and its cost. I got really a very positive reception for that. I think in the near future, this administration and this board is going to need to talk about an athletics facilities and intramural facilities fee that would provide free play area. We need to improve and move our soccer field. We need to improve and move probably the softball field. There's so much could be done, but it is very clear that we need practice and play fields that are artificial turf, and that's going to have to be taken care of. Additionally, we're in the Lone Star Conference. We compete at the very top of it, but it's also very clear that we need to increase the size of that conference in order to cut down our travel and cut down the cost of our program and basically improve our program. So you'll be talking about that in the future too. I'm going to leave the branding of the university to the report that Julie's going to give tomorrow. I couldn't expand on that. I think we're doing a lot more than I even knew we were doing. Every year, Julie adds something to it. The quality of their material is excellent, and she's going to give you a presentation on that tomorrow. Financial planning and budgeting is difficult. One of the major things is the state's formula system in its simplest form demands constant growth in order to keep up with inflation. That is difficult. That's difficult at the University of Texas even, where they've had to cap enrollment. But the thing is, in this session, what we're going to find is there are 4 different considerations of funding pieces that I've discussed with you before, ranging from the formulas, incentive funding, the offset to the Hazelwood tuition, possible increases in the Higher Education Assistance Fund, all of those things will have a great bearing on our funding models and the amount of funding that we're gonna get next year. So when our base budget comes in January, that will be the first shot that we get to see what the Legislative Budget Board is recommending, and we will begin working on next year's budget from that base budget that we'll get in here in January. Information technology, it progresses every day, it expands every day. Students demand more and more services every day. Dr. Clark's going to give you a complete report of where we are, what we need, and where we're going, so I won't comment on that further. But I think that covers the 10 items. I hope you agree that we have picked out those things that this university must really pay attention to now and for the long-term future to make us, to maintain our quality and increase our quality. So thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Dr. Rogers on this priority list? Go ahead, Jessica.
Will we be moving with parking, like a parking garage, even if we do not get funding, or if the health science building does not get constructed?
If the health science building is not approved, we have been instructed to have a plan too. And the reality is we're gonna have to still do something about parking. We're gonna still have to do something about the health science building. I'm not prepared to lay it out right now, but we are thinking about it. So I don't mean to be evasive, but we're gonna have to deal with both, whether it's funded or not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You stated here the market library update would take precedence over construction of the Welcome Center.
Yeah.
I understood before, I thought the Welcome Center was crucial to getting the enrollment up.
It is. What we came up with, we talked about this a long time, and it's been really my desire after seeing our architects' design of what Hardin South could be. I thought that is a great place for students to come for the first time. The reality is, though, I guess I was outvoted or convinced that the library for the students that are here needs to be much more inviting. It needs to be much more of a study center as it is. And if we had to set priority and we have a limited amount of money, let's put it into the library. Let's put some money, though, into emptying the second floor of Hardin South and some money into improving the admissions area, and we think it would be adequate. But so I'd say in the intermediate term, we really do need to go in there and do that building. But with limited funds, which will, we hope, come out of this session, we decided to recommend to you all that we put those funds into the library.
I thought that the library funding was like 25 to 1 greater than the Welcome Center.
You know, that was in the proposal that went for major construction in the last legislative session, I believe. That's what's on Linwood. And
the one seems a very small upgrade. The other one seems to be a huge thing to do. And I just wondering why it was necessary to shift the priority.
After we didn't get the funding, and I hope this answers your question, we have been working on the library. We put new lighting in it. You know, I think we've done quite a bit to it since we didn't get the funding to completely just haul it out and to rebuild it. So we've started redoing it a piece at a time, but we need to put a lot more into it. I hate to have to make those selections, to tell you the truth and stuff.
Mike.
Just a quick point, and more directed towards Keith. Seems like the enrollment here that you're projecting seems very conservative. Is that correct?
Yes.
With what you've been telling us as far as we continue with the natural progression that we've been doing?
I don't think it's a far departure from what I have shown as far as what I think our trajectory is. We've been asked about larger numbers in the past, and I think, you know, if the institution decides it wants to achieve higher numbers, it can, but I don't think what we're projecting, 6,500 in 5 years or 6,400 in 5 years, is a departure from what we've shown thus far in our modeling.
The way it's going to work, Mike, it's going to be, I hate to say exponential, but as soon as we get those small classes out of here that we had in those 2 years, and if we continue getting those freshman classes, of the size we're getting now. Now, we've got some things in here, though, that could increase enrollment if you'll look at the others, such as distance education programming. But just taking the increasing freshman class, those small classes have to work out. Once we get 4 of those small classes in, that very next freshman class, and we're 3 years down the road, then comes in, and we begin to see a real uptick in enrollment.
Thank you.
So I think for purposes of writing it down, we're going to be conservative and projecting the budget.
Can I follow on to Mike's question? What is the ratio of the student fee for a student who is full-time online as opposed to a student who's on campus? Are those the same, or?
There is an online fee
$50 a
addition.
semester credit hour, but then they're not paying for the student center fee, rec fee, and athletics. I think those are the 3 they don't pay. So they're paying $50 a semester credit hour, but they're not paying those other fees, so it's a wash.
So it's pretty much
That's
washes
only
out.
those students that are only
100%,
online.
100% distance. If you're on campus, you're taking classes, and you happen to sign up for one distance ed class, you're still gonna pay the $50 a semester credit hour, but you'll pay the other classes that you're here on campus, you'll pay the regular fees.
And how much are all the fees per semester compared to the 50?
It's about half the tuition.
Yeah, there's only the 3 fees that, they still pay student service fee, they still pay
Student
USF
service fees, $15 a 15 quarter an hour.
So athletics is $10 a semester
25
credit hours. Your student center fee is $55 flat.
flat.
And then your rec fee is $120 a semester. So it's not a per semester hour. You have to pay, some of it's flat, and the athletics is $10 an hour.
Carolyn,
So it works out to be.
Let's answer, instead of pieces, let's take, what's a 15-hour load cost? About $3,800?
Well,
And the fees are about half the tuition. So so it's what, 15, 16, 1,700 for 15 hours.
Am I safe in just in my mind thinking that a full online student pays about 70% total fees in that a student on campus would pay?
No, if you're on campus, you're gonna pay all the same, you'll pay, let's put it this way, if you're distance ed campus, you'll not, if you're 15 hours, you'll not pay $295 in fees, but you will pay
$150 per
$50
course.
for, $750. You'll pay $750 in the distance ed fee. So you'll save $295, but you'll pay $750 distance education. Then everything else is the same as an online student.
Is that pricing consistent with other universities in Texas? Because I know there's other programs in the state that we're competing against, and I'd be curious to know how we stack up.
We can compare those for you, yeah.
That'd be great.
I mean, I don't know that most people are taking the full 15 hours, so they're taking like 9 hours.
Becoming more common,
Yeah.
I know that for a fact.
You know, not for fear of contradiction, the idea that I hear that we can serve 1,000 students, and I'm not talking about MOOCs, I'm just talking about a good distance ed course, 25, 30 people. But if you're going to do this right, we can't teach hundreds of students with one person with a talking head if you don't do it right. Distance education, if it's done well, is going to cost as much as in-class instruction. If you have the right number of students and you have the right kind of instruction and get the right kind of communication and chats and so forth, it's going to be as expensive. The great thing about it, though, is we can reach students that otherwise couldn't go to college. I believe that's sound.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just want to make sure we're not putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage. Any other questions?
When we
Kevin?
quote enrollment numbers, is an online student treated exactly the same?
Exactly. Purposes of state reimbursement and so forth, we don't even designate the difference, and the state doesn't.
So the numbers we see when we see freshmen, sophomores, those include online students?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any idea how much What percentage is that in?
Well, that's computed out of our
Yes.
5,000, 6,000 students, what, 1,000?
Yeah, well, out of our beginning freshmen, about 96% are traditional on campus. Out of our overall student population, just a little south of 900 are online or distance ed only.
So basically, all of our beginning freshmen, but for the entire university, as they take upper level classes, 900 out of the 5,900 are all totally online.
Roughly. It vacillates from semester to semester, obviously, but it's usually in that arena.
Any other questions? Okay, so this item is presented for information only, and no action is necessary. Thank you, Jesse. This information and discussion is very important to prepare for the transition to a new president in the coming months. I will also add that I asked Jesse to give us an update at each board meeting. Let's keep this thing running so that we don't lose sight of what these priorities are as a board. I think it's extremely important. I don't know that we need a laborious update every board meeting, but I do think it's important to understand where we stand against these priorities at each board meeting, particularly related to some of the questions that came up today, costs that may have accelerated, where we are on construction updates, where we are on distant learning, the whole bit. Okay? All right. Item 1505, naming opportunities. Your folder contains a recommendation regarding naming a seminar room in honor of James Hoggard. Jesse, can you please comment on this?
Howard, thank you for pushing this, okay? I have the pleasure of introducing someone who needs no introduction to you, and that's Professor Jim Hoggard. As you all know, Jim retired 2 years ago. Jim came here in 1966 as a professor of English. He holds a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Kansas. He taught here for 47 years. He left here as the Perkins Profro Professor of English. The simple things that or the simplest way to put it is that Jim wrote probably, really, this is true, not just in the hundreds, but maybe in the thousands of published literary pieces in poetry, novels, short stories, translations, stage plays, and essays. I think probably Jim's highest honor, as many of you know, is he was named Poet Laureate of Texas 2000. I think so. He's been one, next to Walt Balquist and a few others, he's been one of our most outstanding, certainly most recognized professors. I think he certainly deserved some recognition and maybe more.
Howard, you want to add anything?
This is through the generosity of Elizabeth Holly, and I think a lot of you might know her. She's been extremely generous to the institution, and I think it's a real credit to her. Rather than her or the family receiving this distinction, she would like to share this with Dr.
Outstanding. Could I have a motion to approve this item as presented? A second? Any discussion? Thank you, guys. We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Our next items will be discussed in executive session later this afternoon. The committee of the whole stands in recess until that time. We'll now move on to the regular committee business. Executive committee meeting will now come to order. Members of the committee joining today are Mr. Bernhardt, Mr. Bryant, and Mrs. Burks. We're going to skip down to item 1513 for discussion of the Phase 1 Housing and Mass Communications Addition project. As you recall, in August, we approved a contract with Trainer Architects for the design of the Residence Hall. Additionally, the administration is recommending that an addition to the Fine Arts Building to house the Mass Communications program be included in this overall project. We will have a number of presenters regarding this project, beginning with Dr. Rogers, Dr. Lamb, our architect, and Dr. Follet. I will remind everyone that after this presentation, we will have a vote on where we're going to go with this. So, here we go. It's a big presentation. Big.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's you.
Okay, all right. Okay, let me start basically with 13, then we're going to the presentation by our architects. I think you're all probably up to date on where we are in terms of student housing. We are housing students off campus. I'll let Keith talk about that. It is clear, I think, that we can fill a dormitory. It's going to keep students here, and I think that we're making good progress on getting high-quality student houses, which for what Midwestern State University is becoming, which is a residential campus, we have to do that. Let me talk to you about the other program that we have basically put in here. I talked to Sean extensively about this, and some of you about it. The expansion of our music program has been clear to us for at least to me, for a long, long time. When we built the Fine Arts Building and completed in 1978, the rest of the building was going to be, well, we built a theater portion and a visual arts portion. The rest was going to be a portion for our music program. The ad valorem tax was killed by the legislature the very next year. All of that type of funding went away, and funding was not available to expand that building. As a consequence, over the years, our music program has been scattered all over the campus. They've not had outstanding or even good facilities. The three past provosts and the current one and I have been trying to deal with space for music so it can expand. It needs to expand. It will expand if they have practice room space in some other areas. Dr. Rodriguez and I sliced a small portion out of the visual arts portion of that building many years ago for music to give them a little bit more room, but it was not enough. In the meantime, parallel to those happenings, the field of mass communications came along. 15 years after that building was built, or 10 years, universities started combining programs in print journalism, television journalism, and other areas of communication into mass communications programs, public relations and other areas. We developed that program. It has been very successful. It's one of our larger programs. It's one of our larger transfer programs. We've got quite a few transfer students into it. That building, since it came out of speech and journalism, those areas that were in the fine arts, we consequently put in the fine arts building. We put them in every corner that we could possibly find in that building. We built a television studio in the 1980s. We're still using that television studio to train sports announcers, TV, news, and so forth. The equipment in it is out of date. The space is inadequate. And we have been telling the College of Fine Arts for 6 or 7 years that we're going to fix it. We've had several plans that didn't work. We've been coming at it from the wrong direction. We now have a new provost, a new dean, and we think a way of funding something we've needed a long time. I've explained to Mr. Hessen that we haven't discussed this a lot because we've just been searching behind the scenes to try to fix this thing. It is one of those things that I've referred to about timing and about the availability of funding. We see a chance to make a big step in this area, and we ask for your support. We would like to, we're going to discuss the funding of it in a moment. We would like to expand the Fine Arts Building to build a new TV2 studio, press rooms, classrooms, offices, so forth for mass communication. That would empty space for music, and we can fix that by bringing in portable practice, modules by putting it in those spaces. And that's one thing we really need in music is practice areas for music. I think it's economical. I think the recommendation that we're going to make on how we fund that is very innovative, workable, and responsible. And I appreciate all the staff's input and ideas into getting that done. We want to do it with the building of the new dormitory because we have architects in place working in that area, and basically it will be economical for us to use those architects to complete that project. So I recommend it to you. Do we want to talk about funding it now, do we?
No.
Okay, all right, okay. Keith, I'm sorry if I stepped on your
No,
ideas.
no,
Okay.
absolutely
Talk
not.
about the housing.
Well, good afternoon, and I am here to speak very briefly on the housing component, and then we'll turn it over to the architect, Nadia, for a formal presentation. But just a quick history on our housing, and many of you that have been on the board for a number of years remember about 3 years ago we commissioned a housing demand study. This was in 2011, and at that time it told us we had latent demand off campus of about 300 existing students that would move on campus with the right type of residence hall. The next year, fall of 12, our overall housing occupancy was at 88%, so that was obviously not the time to go build additional housing stock. Fall of 13 was the first semester where we saw students coming from the more aggressive outreach that Midwestern did. And so a year ago we were at 102% occupancy in housing. This fall we are at 113, or we began the semester at 113% occupancy in housing, and that includes off-campus housing that we subcontracted for and placed students in. And so we've had a tremendous growth over the last 2 years in particular in university housing. We've been talking about this in these meetings here for the last year, that this day would be coming, and we knew it would be fairly quickly. This fall, last fall, as you all remember, very well documented, large entering freshman class. We had the same again this fall, largely residential. 72% of our entering freshmen are not from Wichita County. 62% are not from the Region 9 area. So again, another very large residential class needing housing on campus. That coupled with a very high retention rate in housing, which went up from 55 to 67% last year, has put us at our current 112%. So certainly there's a demand there for additional housing, and I think we all realize that. As we began thinking through this project, and as you heard Dr. Rogers mention earlier, we need to do a better job engaging our students on this campus. We are a NESE school. We participate in the National Survey of Student Engagement. And we know from 10 very broad engagement indicators that compared to our co-plaque peers, our freshmen rate lower in 7 of those 10 broad engagement indicators. So clearly there's work to be done by the university on the manner that we engage our entering students. We saw this housing project as an opportunity to create space where we could create better community with our freshman students. In fact, we saw it as a space where we could create better engagement and community, or at least conditions that allow us to program more for engagement and community with students in 3 other residence halls. So we see this as a space that can have an impact on 1,200 students, 700 in addition to the 500 who would reside in this new residence hall. And so as you watch the presentation, I would encourage you to look at the thought that went into building community, to pulling students out of their rooms and interacting with one another, the space that has been designed for students and faculty members that can come in the residence hall, for staff that can come in the residence hall, for the concept of learning commons that we've created in there. And so I'd encourage you to look at those and think about what I just mentioned in terms of better engagement on this campus. With that, I would like to introduce Nadia Zahiri. Nadia is a principal with Trainer Architects in Lawrence, Kansas. They also have offices in Dallas. And Nadia, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I guess I'll just stand right here. Can everybody hear me okay? Oh, I gotta get the PowerPoint up. Let's see. So, a little outline of what I was going to speak to was just to go into an introduction about us as Trainer Architects briefly, been on 80 campuses and have done about 180 student life projects as a company. One of the things on here is that we really pride ourselves in a very interactive process. So I was going to talk a little bit about that process, but first, just to share with you some of the similar Texas projects that we have worked on. Texas State University West Campus just opened up in August. It's 578 students, 2 towers with a community building in the middle. It's at $37 million construction cost, not total project cost, and it is also a CM at-risk project. Texas A&M University Hullabaloo Hall, 648 beds for students, $55 million in construction cost. It's also a CM at-risk project. It was opened a year ago, August. So it's in its second year of operation. Texas State University Moore Street Housing, 598. It looks very similar to the other project at West Campus. It's at $42 million, and it is just starting in construction right now. One that's in design, it's finishing up in construction documents, going to go out to bid in January. It's 700 beds, $52 million in construction costs, and also CM at-risk project. So, before I get into the process that we went into, what we did, we wanted to make sure that we kind of reminded or reviewed the master plan and how we have been given direction to align our process and the product of what we have done with the master plan that you all have started implementing. And we were to be reminded of what the goals are. So we just wanted to make sure that we had shared that with you, that we are in consideration of that, and we have been working with your master planner and in collaboration with this project. And in review of the vision of it, we want to keep in mind that we're working with the existing architectural style, that is pedestrian friendly, that we're really considering where all the flow of traffic and pedestrian in particular are going, and that we're really looking at the building edges and that pedestrian flow that I mentioned, and that you have sites on reducing parking internally here. So relative to the vision for the housing project, we also went over goals and objectives for the housing project, and it would establish our direction as designers. So you can see here in this list that the first that had gotten the most votes or priority is that you create a residential community anchor, a hub for all the residents that live in that area. But this is really important. It's kind of central to where the other housing buildings are. That it's going to be affordable, give great value, and we're going to maximize community space. We're going to balance privacy and interaction, and attract, retain, and then the last one here is about personal and social learning. So with those goals, those priority goals, we created a project mission statement. Actually, the steering committee did, and you can see here just the highlighted elements that this is the direction that we've been given. And when we all walk through the new building, we're all going to ask ourselves, have we accomplished this? So this mission statement is kept in mind while we go through the project process, and we are judging the options that we are presenting, the steering committee is, as to if we're accomplishing this or not. So we think it's a very important element in the design process. So in our process, we've been working for about 90 days, and the first part of the process was a kickoff meeting and understanding those visions and the vision and the goals, and we're already starting to look at schedule and budget, and that it's really important to us that we have that alignment, in particular with the budget. And then we've come back for some workshops, and in this first workshop was getting an understanding of all the stakeholders on campus and knowing how to have them give input and be involved in the project. We all also met with students at the first workshop. The next workshop, we were here for 3 days, and we started looking at site concepts for the site, and we actually looked at massing, and we talked about sustainability and such. And then in October, we were here for 1 week. We moved in at the Student Center and had stakeholders in and developed the design in real time and met with the steering committee 3 times that week. And at each one of these phases, we're looking at costs too. And so we have been through, I think, 3 generations of a cost model. And here we are today, and we have been talking independently about the design and preparation even for this meeting. So, and then we'll have a final schematic design submittal here on the 24th of November for approval. The project is made up of lots of different kinds of spaces. The bulk of the spaces that go into a project are the residential units or bedrooms. It takes up about 60% of the program. And what's really important is that it's well done and efficiently done, and that we make the right choices because it implicates all the square feet for the project and then ultimately the dollars. And also the experience that the institution wants to have for those students. And as you remember, we talked about student engagement and community and so on. And the choice was to look at traditional units here. The other thing that we discussed is what we call a super suite. And the idea with the super suite is that you create pods of communities, and that each community has not only the bedrooms, but it might have some living space or a lounge and private bathrooms, that it feels like a very large apartment in essence. So this is the concept. And then going back to those goals and that list of goals, we know that they want personal success for all the students, or the steering committee that you do as an institution. And so there are strategies that we'll be looking to do in order to make sure that the students feel there's a sense of well-being in the building. And so we're going to really want to create a vibrant environment, and the connecting with nature is really important. And actually in focus groups with the students, they mentioned a lot about the outside space. Their desire to have more shelter and places that they can sit out there and congregate and so on. So we're going to keep that in mind as we go through the design process. We've talked about engagement, student engagement today. And here's a little bit of research about student learning and personal development, and that it means having the students well involved and really activated. So we're going to look at strategies, how to do that. So it translates to us about social success and building a sense of community, that would create that activity. And there are strategies that we'll be doing, and one is breaking down scale. Right now, the communities that are on the residence halls, which would be the group of students that are aligned with on RA, are around 50, I believe. Is that right? 31. Okay. Well, we're going to still do that, but we're going to create the scale of that 31 will be identifiable, and it also will be the scale of the building, and then where it is on the broader campus, so that we look at how you can define those different levels of scale and break those down. When we get down here, we haven't done it yet, but the strategy will be to embrace tradition, spirit, and connections to MSU, and we'll be talking about that as we develop the design farther. The learning component, and you all may have heard the term living learning environments. So there is a great deal of research out there that if we can create a very highly social climate where students are engaged, and that you create a more intellectual atmosphere, they're talking with faculty and so on, and giving them those opportunities, they're actually making better grades and they're staying in school. So what are our strategies in design for academic success? Is to really promote formal and informal learning and create those spaces in order to do that. And you can see here on that list, social study spaces, lots of flexible spaces that students can move things around, and a lot of technology, of course. Programmatically, there is a space that we translate those strategies into, and we call it a community learning center. The precedent was started at the University of Michigan, and the idea of it is a computer room on steroids. A lot of people think that the students all bring laptops to school now, and you don't need computer rooms. But what we're finding and what we're understanding is that students are coming with their computers, but they can't afford the software that they may need for a geology class or some other kind of class. So the institutions are providing it for them. Excuse me. And there's also a difference in learning, where there are a lot more group projects than I know that I had when I went through college, and that there needs to be an opportunity where students can actually get together, plug all their computers together, and work on a project, or practice a PowerPoint that they're going to give in a presentation. We've put in video production areas in these community learning centers, or there's tutoring spaces, and it's all happening in an area that's right in your residence hall, and that it's very close to where the students are living, and they're not having to go across campus or to an isolated floor in a library, but they're there, and it's communal and it's social. And in this diagram, this is it. Oh, sorry. This is the community learning center here, and it's on a social floor with some other spaces for all the students in the residence hall. In summary, the program is 500 beds in doubles and singles for freshmen and sophomores, 16 communities of 31, 32 in what we're calling in concept a super suite. Communities will have then lounges and study rooms and private baths at a ratio of 1 to 5. That's much like Hollingsworth and Pierce are today. And then that we create this living, learning destination for all the students in the residential area to create that hub. And that includes a community learning center, multi-purpose spaces, recreation, small convenience store cafe, and a small audiovisual theater, and of course their administrative offices in the building. I spoke about the charrette in the process, and here are just some of the images and the outcome of the charrette that we had in October. And I put this in there because it gets to be really messy. There's lots of people, there's lots of things going on, and it's very invigorating. We love doing them. And we do them because we believe that it creates that shared vision in design, and that everybody can remember what we were talking about, because we're meeting one day and we're meeting in the day after, and there's a continuum. There's these cycles that we go through. So we met with the steering committee 3 times, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then we met with stakeholders throughout the week. But we are going back to the drawing table, presenting it, going back to the drawing table, presenting it, until we come to an outcome that everybody can agree to. Here's just some images of the student input and form that we had on Wednesday evening. This image right here is we actually taped off the single room and the double room, and housing was able to bring some of, and you may not be able to see this very well, some furniture, and the students tested it all out and gave us some input on the layout of the way the bedrooms look. We spoke with 13 stakeholder groups, and here's the list of them here, and some images from there. You can see here, I think, some images on some sheets of paper that they were all prioritizing and thinking about. And here is an image of one of the boards. We had 6 boards. These are exterior images and landscape. And what you see are the students are in blue, student affairs in yellow, housing administration in green, and the steering committee in red. And if you just kind of take a gander over, you can see that some of the images have more dots than the other. Here are 2 that had a lot of dots on here. You put people up in the front of the restaurant by the street, so it looks like it's really full and it's a happening place. And if you're trying to create a place that's a destination, we need to think about those sort of things. What's going to get them attracted to going there? And we think that you need views in and you need views out, and that it looks like it's a happening place. This image, and it's very difficult to see, but it's an outside image where students are gathered and we're looking at a movie on the side of a wall. Well, that's interesting. They've got a lot of dots, so we're going to think about that. Next is community and academic resources. And the images that have a lot of dots on them, this one in particular, you can see again, it's having a lounge space with some windows going out. When you think about Killingsworth and Pierce, the students love the rooms that they're in, but you can't, the bedroom areas. The community spaces, hardly anybody uses them. So as a designer, the design team, we're thinking about how do you activate even the lounges that are on the floor so that students feel like they can use them. We really believe that a lot of natural light going into those spaces activates them and makes them feel more welcoming. This is an image of some booths and some private seating areas with lights. So we'll think about that in some of the community commons area. Amenities and circulation, the image that had lots of dots. This is like a game room, and you can see it has real tall ceiling. It's got some movies going on, or some TVs, and wide open, still some daylight coming in. So we'll think about that. This one had a lot of dots on it too, and we believe that it has to do with this. You have some circulation, but you have some sideline seating. You know, it's like you're not in the traffic, but you're like there to be able to be a voyeur, and that makes people feel comfortable. So those are some of the images and thoughts about experience that we're going to be considering as we develop the design. We did do a site analysis, and here's a view, a paste-up view of the site. Sun Watcher's right here. And just to remind everyone, in the master plan and such, that this is the housing site, and mass communication is right here attached to the east side of Fine Arts. In looking at the site analysis, we're overlaying the master plan and the need for the connection of spaces and open spaces. The other thing is the patterns that you find and are going to be enhanced with the master plan. Mustang Walk, connections through this site, Sun Watcher, and back into campus, future student center, and those connections that would be made from both directions. In the charrette, now these are the very first images and drawings that we did for the site as it is for this housing project. So it's not the final, and nothing that you'll see today is final, but we wanted to give you an idea of what's going on. This footprint here is the new residence hall, Fine Arts, and Capella Trigg, Pierce, Killingsworth. This path right here is in master plan's indication of an axial walk, and it actually would go through the building and create a breezeway through the building so that you can connect this part of campus back through to the main part of campus. And there are two courtyards that are being created, one that is more reflective, quiet, and definitely used by the residents that are there. But this is an opportunity, because of what's in this part of the building, that you can have that movie watching, or banners could be hanging there, so that it creates a different kind of space for the outside that you don't have exactly now. This is a more active courtyard, and it would be a shared plaza area with shelter, maybe a fire pit. And this would be more common, this wing here would be more commons, that all the residents in this area would be using. Here's our, we had lots of options that we presented that week, and this was the option or concept that we came to by concept for the unit or the bedroom is this. This is a full height wall that splits the room in two, shared sink and an individual closet space. The students, again, told us they love the zigzag shaped spaces for their bedrooms that they have in Killington and Pierce. So this is like a cousin to it. You know, they're still in the family with divided space. It's just a different shape, and it does have a sink in it. And that became the building block for the whole building. In communities, this community, that's a community, and you can see with the community they have shared bathrooms in the middle with bedrooms on either side and community lounge space that's identifiable to each one of these communities with a central core that they all use to go up and down. The building is 5 stories, 4 stories in bedrooms or residences. Here's the first shot at a concept of the outside that we're looking at with the front. This would be the front. This is the path that goes through the building. And the idea of maybe getting some articulation with glass and creating a tower or an element at the front. So as we have gone back to the drawing boards again, we have developed a little bit more in the design. Just quickly, this is how the massing shows up. It is a 5-story building, but it's the same height as a 6-story building next to it. And that gives you an idea of how it sits on the site there. The site circulation responds to Mustang Walk here, and that path that goes through that we've mentioned. This is Rodriguez Drive right here, and the relationship to a south and north courtyard. The program organization, as I mentioned in those earlier drawings, the bottom floor here that you see in this purple area is this commons area for all of the residents. This is administrative offices for just the residents that live in this building, and then support spaces on the other side with 4 stories of residences above. We've put it into the computer, we've massaged, we've looked at it a number of ways, and it's still in progress. It's organized in a similar fashion as mentioned before, with support in the commons area and that walkway that would run through the building. And this has been tweaked, but it is in concept in a similar fashion with now with study rooms that bring in some daylight into the core with the lounges with each community within the building. There's laundry space on every floor in the center floor. So as we're starting to look at the outside and the creation of the character of the building, we've identified some features on campus that we want to incorporate and emulate. So of course, the use of arches. We love this scalloping that you have on many of your buildings. We've noted that there's cast stone, besides the brick, of course, but cast stone at the sills on almost every single building that you have on campus. A little bit of articulation with the arches, and then there's banding, there's squares and such with cast stone or stone on your building. So as a first sketch, so this is a first sketch with the new massaged floor plan. This is the north courtyard, but that the loggia that we see going through the building would have arches and there would be brick and such. We tried to lay on, this is, that the brick would be the same color as the other, and the same brick as the other buildings, but that we're creating a sense of hierarchy and such. This does have some stucco on the top here, and I can talk about that here in a little bit. This is a view on the north side of Rodriguez Drive looking back. And the brick, and that we're creating a pedestrian path strategies that we're looking at, but of course, we're looking at historical data. We have a cost estimator on board who has a lot of experience doing housing projects. We're looking at systems that we're going to be selecting, so at the very first or second meeting we had, we started talking about those systems, and that we're balancing the efficiency of the program, so we're making sure we're not overbuilding. And we're going to look at this initially as, you know, let's look at the low range, the middle range, and the high range. And that's what we did with the steering committee. So we looked at the initial thinking about where square footages were, but we spent a lot of time looking at what this quality level is. And in discussion with the steering committee, we focused in on the medium version here, but then we were going to swap out some of the things that go into the low and the high. So we settled on this medium that is a mix of those three, where the building is 5 stories and it is a 4-story wood frame residence hall that's sitting on a concrete podium below to house all those common spaces where you need a lot of ceiling height, but it's also probably the most cost-efficient way of structuring this project. And it would have 90% brick, 10% stucco, with some glass, and we tie into the central plant for chilled water and fan cold units, and we are at about $177 a square foot for project costs of about $32.9, construction of about $26.7. So that is the housing project. So I want to spend a little bit of time on Mass Communications Department and talk about their vision and the goals and objectives this team has. They are wanting to convert to a studio where it's a broadcast media studio and digital studio all coming together, and it's a seen and be seen, highly active, student engaging space too, where there's it's a vibrant learning environment. It has connections to the outside world, but they want a real world experience for their students, and that there's synergy with these students, and there's engagement with the faculty, student recruitment and retention, and enhanced community involvement or outreach. And it's interesting, some of the same goals are here as they were in the housing project. So it's all about getting students engaged, like you said. Program study. There is a TV studio, and it has 3 platforms in that TV studio. In the student faculty broadcast support would be 7 editing bays or rooms, and I think there's 4 today. Faculty offices and storage for equipment. As you can see, there's checking out of equipment that the students do for both broadcasting and in the newsroom, and that there's a broadcast lab in there for teaching, of course. And the newsroom is an interesting layout for the fact that the newsroom is in the center of lots of other things and other spaces that are happening, such as there's the student stations where they actually work on their news pieces. There's a super desk, which are the editors where they give direction. There are faculty offices that go in and out and attach to this space. There's an interview room, and there's a photo shooting room, and then storage room, different rooms there too for checking out equipment and such. It will be a very active place. And then a journalism lab for 20 students. There's 1 conference room and a classroom and a conference room, and a smaller conference room. So there's 3 spaces with that. And then a break room, and that's included too. Students are there a lot. It's a place for them to actually meet with faculty, and there's vending machines and such. So it's another place where students are getting connected with each other and building some community. Here's the site plan again. Just want to remind everyone, it's over here. And I know that we flipped the site on you a few
Don't answer that, Howard.
The desire, we'll have to look at the angle exactly, but the desire to see the Coliseum in the background of that news platform is a great idea. And like I said, this is open to the floor below, and there's also a walkway that walks around here and accesses these offices and storage room, broadcast lab, large conference room, small conference room, and these are the editing bays here for the students, the 7 of them, and then here is a break room with some glass looking out over where students are entering into the building. Cost estimate for it, we're at about 18,500 square feet. It is 2-story steel post and beam system with metal stud infill, so it is not wood. 100% brick with aluminum curtain wall, same mechanical system, and good finishes, and we're at about $225 a square foot. Construction dollar value of $4,120,000. It does include some upgrades that you mentioned, and about $130,000 increase of that number. The total project cost of almost $5 million. That's where we are with the estimate at the moment. So I'm all done.
I have a question for Mr. Bragg. This is Jeff's question. It appears we're allocating a lot of dorm space that could be residential to community space, at games, computers, which he said he's not necessarily sure is necessary due to the close proximity of the student center, which already has those things offered.
Right. Yeah, and I can address that, and certainly Matt may want to address that as well, and Nadia. The student center is frankly too small for the student population we already have. So adding another 500 students to campus is going to increase our concern with the feasibility of a student center the size that we currently have. In addition, I think what you're going to see, and we are just now out on bid, we just went out on bid last week for dining services. But what I think you will see whenever we switch or we award a new contract and add 500 more residents to the board plan, is I think you will see more student center space go away from general use and being used for dining. And so I think an already too small student center will lose usable, flexible student center space. And so we felt that based on those NESI results and knowing we need to do a better job engaging our students and knowing that the student center is already too small and not it's not a building that is incredibly functional in its current state, we thought this was an opportunity to affect that engagement.
Okay.
That's the reason.
So let me stop us for a second. Does anybody have any more questions for Nadia at all? Go ahead, please.
Who voted on the dorm room design? Was that Stephen?
Yes.
Yes.
I know there's student input on it. I was just wondering too.
How many students did you have at the shred who participated in that?
Yeah, let's get it from.
Well, I don't think you can say it's one specific group that has actually been responsible for the vote. So the steering committee worked up a concept, but then the students were the ones who gave their voice to it. The reason that there's that partial privacy wall, that was students. They said, no, we want privacy with the interaction outside. And so, but really the students chimed in twice, once during the forum and then during the charrette. And I think we had about 24 students present at the charrette. And they actually got to see the blue tape on the floor, walk in to see where the furniture could go, and offered their support. I didn't hear anything in
appreciate the design of, that you're keeping the integrity of our buildings by looking at it. I'm sure it's a cost factor, but the stucco, is that, something that can be revisited, or, and I assume it's based on, the amount of money it's going to require?
Right, and, it is about money, but the bigger influence is that because of money, we chose a wood frame system instead of steel or steel infill bearing wall system. And, you have to put, if you put brick all the way up, we can go 3 stories with brick, basically, 3 to 3.5, it's like there's a distance, and then you have to start adding in steel angles in order to hold the brick up, getting around the wood. And so you'd have to start wrapping the whole building in steel on the wood to be able to carry the brick all the way up. So that is something we're gonna have to look, right now at the cost that the arena of cost that we're in, we're gonna have to take a really close look, because we know the importance of making sure that it all works conceptually with East Campus, but that was the main reason.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna address what the recommendations of the administration are. Then we're gonna have, I wanna have the discussion about financing in connection with that, and then we'll make the recommendations as a whole, okay? Because I just think it's really important for us to hear that. The administration's recommendations currently stand, and they're presented in your folder as follows. Approve a 500-bed housing project in an approximately 18,500 square foot addition to the east side of the famed Fine Arts Building to house the mass communications program. Approve a maximum budget of $33.25 million for the residence hall and a $5 million budget for the mass communications addition, and approve Buford Thompson Construction as construction manager at risk for this project at a cost not to exceed $2 million. So what we'd like to do now, Nadia, you can stay, you can leave, you can do whatever you like, because we're going to talk about how we're going to pay for this now.
And Marilyn also has some information on the CMAR, how they were selected.
Good, because I had a question
Would you
about
like
that.
to go over that?
Item 1514 relates to the financing of the project we just talked about. Jesse and Marilyn will present the information. Who wants to go
Do you want me to do the CMAR first?
Why
Or
not?
the financing?
Why not?
So we had
Would you make sure that Kenny and I we want to make sure we understand what that means, by the way, the CMAR. Fantastic.
I wrote that down like, what?
All of us want to know. We all want to know.
I won't take quite as long as Nadia, but I did want to run through real quick how we picked our construction manager at risk and what that means. There's 3 ways to build a building. You can do a design bid build, or construction manager at risk. A design bid build is the architect completely designs the building, creates the packages to bid on, it goes out to bid, and you hire a construction manager with all the subcontractors at the best price. That takes a long time. You have to do the whole design up front, get the whole package done up front. And you're pretty much relying on your architect to build the value in. The second way you can do it is design build. You hire an architect and a construction manager at the same time as a team, and then you go from there. That sometimes they'll say, we'll come in and we'll build it for such and such a money, but you really don't know. They go ahead and get the bids themselves, and you may leave a lot of money on the table when you do it that way. It is a faster way to build it. Do it faster. Construction manager at risk is kind of the optimal way to do it. We hire an architect, they come up with the concept, they start putting together some cost, and then we go out and we hire a construction manager. At that point, they'll get involved in the design too, and look based on their, I'm sorry?
I need you to speak up.
Okay. So they'll go ahead and do, the general contractor will also get some feedback on the design and with their experience, ways to save money and maybe build it a little bit cheaper. We'll go ahead and put the packages together, bid bid those subcontractor packages out, and when we get them back, then we get a guaranteed maximum price on the project. At that point, we build it. If there's any savings on the project, it comes back to MSU. So I'll run through this real quick. So what we did is we did a request for proposal. We issued that out in the paper. We sent it out to local general contractors that were capable of this size of a project. We sent out information nationwide. We posted it on the State Business Daily, and we kept it all out there for 3 days. We created a committee of 7 individuals to evaluate the firms. I don't know who those were, but basically the executive team and housing. In the RFP, we evaluated the firms based on their past experience, if they were able to build this kind of a project, how much they were going to charge us to build the project for their services, and then just general info of the personnel. We got 5 submissions back from different contracting firms. We rated them, the committee rated them based on that criteria, and we selected 3 for interviews. We went ahead and off of the interviews, we developed another list of questions we sent out, and we asked them who their best and final offer. And at that point, we reviewed them again and are bringing to you the recommendation for Weaver Thompson. This company offered absolutely the best value with significant savings to this project. It was just hands down, not even close. So they are based out of Weatherford. They have worked locally here with Harper Perkins on many projects. They've worked on many ISD projects of similar size, with so time sensitive. They're used to that, to delivering on time to schools. You know, when they have to open, they have to open. So that's similar to us. We're going to have kids ready to move in. The place better be built. And they've got really good relationships with a lot of our local subcontractor base. So the next step after you all, if you approve them, we'll go ahead and finalize our contract with them. They'll immediately start working with Trainer Harper Perkins on reviewing the design. They'll come up with those cost estimates. We'll develop those bid packages to go out to the subcontractors. We are the ones that issue the packages out, and we'll collect those sealed bid contracts, and then we all open them together and look them over. Based on the bids, then Buford Thompson will provide that guaranteed maximum price to the project. Any savings, again, comes back to us when it's done. And that's it. So any questions?
Marilyn?
So now you know all about how to build a building.
You said that when you picked Buford Thompson, that you narrowed it down to what, 3
Three firms.
3 firms.
Uh-huh.
Were any of those firms in Wichita Falls?
Yes, sir, there were.
There were? And they were what? When you say that Buford was a lot better or less expensive, how much would you
Pay
say
25%.
percentage? 25%. Okay.
Did you say that's what it came up to be, Keith?
That was a big number.
It was a big number.
Okay.
Anybody else? I have one quick question. To be clear, Harper Perkins will work with Trainer as our local architects, right?
They were part of the original contract we signed with Trainer.
If it's involved since the beginning.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that the board knew what was
Right.
going on.
Right. And that was one of the reasons we chose Trainer, because they did
Yeah.
partner with a local architect.
Mike?
One quick question. The steel construction or the wood construction percentage wise, how much more would it be?
Sorry, I'm not
Off
sure
the top of your head. I put you on the spot and I apologize
No,
for that.
it's fine. Maybe 25 to 30% more.
Okay, thank you.
$6 to $9 million. Yikes. Okay. All right.
Do you want to talk about financing for Maryland?
Let's hear about financing.
Dr. Rogers will start.
Okay.
I'll start, and we'll let Marilyn give you more specificity.
Okay.
Okay. As I indicated when we started talking about the mass communication project, one of the things that's held us up is we could not come up with a plan that was satisfactory. Then we could not come up with a way to finance this. We don't have enough higher education funds to underwrite the bonding of it. However, when when Marilyn and her staff were putting together the results of investments, basically we noticed how well one of the agencies, Texas A&M, is doing with our investments, and realized that the Red Wine Fund, which has been designated and used for running the honors program, faculty, scholarships, so forth, was creating, even has invested enough to run that program. But if it were invested with higher yields, and Marilyn will talk about that, there is enough money coming off of the 12 million. It's grown to 12 million in spite of our use maybe of $500,000 to $700,000 a year. It's grown to $12 million as a corpus. But there would be enough money, enough thrown off by the Red Wine Fund, which was non-designated, but we asked the board to set it up as a quasi-endowment. It'd throw off enough to run the honors program plus, as well as underwrite the cost of a mass communication edition. When we saw that, it just, as they say, it lit me up as a possibility. We're keeping our endowment, yet we're letting its yield build space for us and let it run an important academic program. So that's the main reason behind our recommendation to you all that we move these funds. I'm going to let Marilyn talk to you about the numbers and where we would move them from in order to get the kind of yield we need to build this building and run the honors program.
It's more like 15%.
Okay.
So this is, when Kevin McGinnis was here at the last board meeting from Texas A&M University System, he did provide an overview of how they invest endowed funds. So I'm just going to give you a real quick update. This is year-end numbers that they sent us. So this is the returns that the endowment fund has gotten. This last year, 16.8%, 5 years, 12%, 7 years, 10 years, 7%, and since 95, 8.7%. They use a balanced index. So the next slide will show you their asset allocation of how they invest the funds, and so they do a weighted on the benchmarks of each of those asset groups. And so that's the balanced index of what they're comparing themselves against. So they've been able to achieve what they call an alpha return, a higher return than you would expect. Again, here's their target allocations for the different asset groups, and I can go back and compare to what we've directed in our policy. So if we do move our money, the Luther King money to A&M, we have to accept those asset classes. So we'll have to go back and change our endowment policy to recognize that we are accepting these investment targets. But it's well diversified, as you can see. The way the A&M system does it is you buy in with units and then the unitized value, and that's the way they can keep track of the inflows and the outflows easier rather than just do an overall dollar value. So they unitize your money when you put it in, so you're buying shares of the endowment, and so you can see the growth in the value of the shares over time. The quarterly spending rate is 5%, and what they do is a 20-quarter rolling average of those unitized values, and they do 1.25% distribution every quarter. So if you consider the unitized value, so if you look at FY 2010, that's the look back for 5 years. So it's pulling in some of those really bad returns in 2009 when the market crashed. So therefore the 5% distribution is actually higher because the values were lower. distribute 5%, 1.25% per quarter versus 3% is all we're getting off the Luther King right now, annually. We do a once-a-year distribution of 3%. So you can see we would have been distributing, this is cumulative, how much more we would have gotten distributed to us through A&M than we've gotten with Luther King. Luther King charges us about 50 basis points to manage the money. A&M would charge us 25 basis points.
So that's some of the difference.
That's the difference, right. So that's the comparison of what we're doing currently to the way we do it. And of course, you've met Luther King representative. He's come and presented 2 years now. Actually, this was this meeting, but we put it off until you all review this and see if this is the direction you would like to go. So basically, the recommendation is if we move it to A&M, the return that we would get off, it's about $12 million that the Luther King endowed funds right now would generate about $600,000 a year. Right now, we're using about $310,000 a year for the honors program. Debt service on $5 million would be about $280,000 a year for 30 years at 4%. So you can see we would have enough to do both.
So the board's clear on this. The way we finance it is debt service.
Debt service.
Both projects.
Both projects
The housing
at the same
project
time.
is self-funding. This is funded through
Massive.
the additional earnings from Redwood.
So we would, in order to be the most efficient, Trainer would be the designer, our construction would be done together. It's gonna save us money on the project because it's economies of scale, and the bonding would be together. We just have two different sources of funds paying for the debt service.
Okay. You guys have anything else?
The recommendation.
Hang on just a minute. Let me read the recommendations. So you've got the recommendations for the project. Let me read these. The administration's recommendations are presented in your folder. They are as follows. Authorize the administration to move the Red Wine quasi-endowment to Texas A&M University system for investing. Approve expanding the use of the Red Wine quasi-endowment to include debt repayment for the mass communications building portion of the debt service in addition to earnings being used to support the honors program. And lastly, approve bonding of the overall project in an amount not to exceed $38.25 million. I know I'm supposed to ask for a recommendation here, but that begs a question in my mind. The $2 million that you want us to approve on Buford Thompson Construction, how's that getting paid for? Because that doesn't add up.
That's part of that.
Does that add up? Oh, it does add up. Okay, never mind. Okay, so those are the recommendations that the administration is asking us to approve. And before we have some additional discussion, I'd like a motion to approve all 6 of those.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Questions, comments, observations? Lynn, would you have your hand up first?
Aren't all these projections based on a 2-year market that's been the biggest run we've seen in the history of the market? I mean, going from one to another and what we're gonna throw, aren't they based on the biggest run-up in the market we've ever seen?
That's why they're doing a 20-quarter rolling average, so it smooths everything out. It's over 5 years. They're figuring an average of 5 years, and that's what they distributed on.
Yeah, but to Linwood's point, that run-up is in those quarters, and
Right.
it was a big run-up.
But also the 3 years before the run-up is in those quarters.
That was intent.
Agreed.
And the way we would go from one extreme to the other during this 20-quarter drill.
Well, I don't recall it being one extreme. It was low, but I'm not a market specialist by any means, but
So I
But
guess
I'm
my add-on
concerned
question
about that.
for Linwood is, what happens if they don't make the returns? How are we
Okay,
gonna
so
pay
the
for
worst
it?
case scenario, right now we've committed to spending $310,000 a year for honors. And we're assuming we're gonna be getting something around $600,000 from
Okay.
this. let's say we only get the 310,000.
Right.
Worst case, we'd have to come up with 280,000 a year to pay debt service. And I mean, that's
He-
not that much money,
No,
really,
it-
in the grand scheme
He
of our $100
potentially
million
can go up
budget.
$1.5 million. We look for it to go up.
What I don't want
70%.
happening, this is my concern, what I don't want happening is what Lynn was alluding to is that if in fact we don't make the number, okay, the honors program suffers for it.
Right.
That's
No, I think it would be the
unacceptable.
opposite way. We would pay the debt service out of other funds.
All right.
Dr. Stewart hasn't spoken up, so she's obviously comfortable with this program.
Oh, look at that look.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Yeah, Jeff's question. Jeff has a question.
Jeff wants to know how we can use the red wine money for this if it's endowed. It's a quasi-endowment
quasi-endowment.
that the board directs, so.
It's our direction.
We call it an endowment.
Awesome.
Great question. Kenny, good question? Sweetman? Any other questions? Jesse?
I think I missed my opportunity to ask this question. It's not directly related to the financing part, but is it
That's
safe?
why I brought them all together, Jesse, because I
Okay.
felt like this would be the
Okay.
time. Go ahead.
Is it safe to assume that the cost to live in the new dorm is going to be greater than the cost of the current dorms?
That's a great question. That's a great student question. Like that.
That is a great student question. And I'll take it then. First of all, I need, and I failed to mention earlier, and I'm going to answer your question. I failed to mention earlier, Matt Park is back here, and Matthew has really been the one driving this process from housing and from student life. He's done a great job, so thank you, Matt. Yes, I mean, this, to live in this will be the premium residence hall on campus. So we believe cost-wise it will be positioned at or above what it will cost to live in McCullough-Trigg, but less than what it costs to live in Sundance and Sunwatcher, because those are apartments. So that's where we believe it will be positioned cost-wise.
So not completely off scale,
No.
within scale.
Roughly, what's the dollar amount roughly?
Well, remember, we're talking price escalation. I'm going to answer that, and I'm going to qualify it. We're talking price escalation 2 years out, fall of 16. Right? We realize that our semi-suite residence halls out of 13 surveyed Texas schools are the 12th least expensive. Right? And so what we are modeling right now is $2,400 a semester.
This 2,400 for the new dorm.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to compliment Matt on helping me run the numbers. We're assuming a 92% occupancy, and we would be able to easily pay for the $33.25 million. That's the maximum. We would love to get below that. So we are not pushing the edge of 100% occupancy or anything.
And we're
back from that.
no, absolutely. We're assuming a low occupancy and zero summer revenue.
Right.
Which of course is not realistic. We will have summer revenue. We're modeling it as zero.
Being very conservative.
Any other? Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
And of course, the proposals for the housing rates will come to this body in the future, but just to give you an idea, the current rate for McCullough-Trigg is right at $2,000 a semester. We're probably looking to be at around $2,200 a semester when this facility opens. So I know that's forecasting into the future, but $2,400 a semester is the amount we've been using to establish maximum ceiling for the project to be self-sustaining.
Compared to other schools, isn't it? That's very
And it's,
reasonable.
we'll still be well below our peers for our housing rates.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some things I don't understand and that I probably missed, but I thought when we had discussed this in the past that the housing would throw off enough income to pay for itself. So when we talk about the red wine endowment, is that strictly to pay for the mass comm? And are we putting a wall of separation in there anywhere? Because when I read this, it all seems to be together.
That's a great point. I took it to mean, as I look at this, that the red wine money is totally and completely for that. Now, you guys, Jesse, you guys need to speak to that. I don't think.
Once the debt service is paid from the red wine money, any additional funds above and beyond that is going to be going to honors. It will not be used to supplement housing. So the debt service $280,000 a year once that's satisfied, if the endowment throws off $1 million a year, let's say, the 280 gets paid and the rest goes to honors.
But I thought in the past we had said that the housing itself would service the debt for the housing.
Yes,
So
it is.
in my mind, that's
Absolutely,
separate.
absolutely. So the only
That's
thing
right.
that
Strictly talking about mass comm.
the
So
$5
how
million,
much? So,
$5 million.
all right, so that is separate in our thinking.
It's gonna be bonded together, so that we don't have to go out and do bond issuance costs twice. So we're gonna get one big bond, that there'll be two sources of funds to pay for it. Housing will pay for their 33 and a quarter, or whatever, something less than that, and Redwine will pay for $5 million.
So in what year of the housing does it fully pay for its part of it? I don't recall.
Year
one.
30 years bonding.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we've seen some things, but it seems like a lot of money with a little bit of information on exactly how this gets paid, when I don't understand exactly how we're going to get it full, when it's going to get full, how that gets paid.
Fall of 16. So it will open in the fall of 16, and so we expect to be at or above 92% occupancy in the fall of 16 for housing, and it will pay for itself from day one.
Have I seen the model of what we're charging for each room and the number of rooms and how much money we get for that?
I can tell you that, and as Matt alluded to earlier, that is actually approved by this body, and so what we are forecasting is $2,400 per room.
That's the one we've seen in the past.
For this new building.
Okay.
But you all will not approve that until the February 2015 board meeting.
Keith, let me interject something, because I think what Linwood is driving at here is, you guys showed us a model, maybe last meeting or meeting
Right.
before last, okay? And it showed itself paying for itself over time. There were two different scenarios, but that, I believe, was a building worth about $28 million, I think.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, that's right. And Marilyn, you guys put this together, I'm trying to remember by memory. I think what Linwood's saying is, hey, look, this thing's changed to $33 million. We'd like to see a model that shows that $33 million paying for itself.
Mhm.
I understand what you're saying, I get it, because I actually did the math, and when I saw this and you guys were talking about it, and I get it, but the point is, Dr. Gibbons is looking for that, we should provide that to the
Sure,
board.
we can provide that.
Okay.
We'll give you our
And I'm concerned, while I'm sure the cost will be what everyone says it is, I've never actually been able to do a project in which the cost came in. Nor have I ever sat and talked about one that came at that cost. So I really feel uncomfortable that there's a lack in, maybe if I see it, I don't remember it, but I don't recall seeing the financial backing for all this, or what is going to be charged per room. You see what I'm saying?
Sure, we can
So
provide that.
I'm
We've
just
got that all
I'm
done.
uneasy that I'd just like to see it.
Yeah,
Sure.
because Marilyn, it's changed since you guys showed it to us last time. I can't remember, it may have been August, it may have been May, I can't remember what it was. And I agree, I think we should, because if you hadn't asked for it, I was going to. And
Okay.
I'd like to see it as well.
Yeah, we can probably pull that up right here. I mean, if we have the Excel file where we've laid it out all out. Now, I will also say that, I fully expect this housing project at least to come in at what we say it will come in at. And the reason I say that is, other housing projects we've done here, we've not exceeded costs. And I believe Trainer, when's the last time one of your projects exceeded the cost estimate? So I feel very comfortable that we're gonna come in at what or below what we're telling you, but we can show you the
But I feel
model.
more comfortable if we had a contingency plan in case this would be the first one.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Could,
And maybe if I could have it to look at tonight myself, it takes me a while to look at it, I'm not.
Sure, we can get that for you.
could I comment on Red Wing? We do have, and I know what you're saying, we're paying debt with yield. However, with what the way A&M's figures their yield and the way they pay out looks good, but it's still paying, as you say, we're paying debt with investment yield. Now, this is another not absolutely certain point, but we are dedicated, we're not a permanent university fund school. We're a higher education fund school. That's our permanent university fund. Constitutionally, we're dedicated at this point $3.4 million a year for capital projects. we have decided at this point not to bond that 3.4 million. We're budgeting all on smaller projects, you know, IT equipment and so forth. That amount has not been changed since
2000.
2000. Okay, I was on the committee in 1995. Okay, so it's not been changed
Yeah,
since
has-
2000.
has inflated.
They're constitutionally supposed to change the amount and increase it, which has never happened. So the proposal to the state right now is that the higher education fund schools that get HEAF money, we get 3.4 million of that, should be increased by 50%. Debbie and I that deal with the legislature can't imagine 50%, but it could very well happen, the money's there. That would be, if they were to, that'd be an extra 1.5 million to us for capital projects, and you can use it to pay off bonded indebtedness. If they do it at 25%, that's still an extra $750,000. So I hate to go, we have a financial back door that looks pretty darn certain. Even if they don't increase it, we have 3.4 million a year that we have no bond requirements against.
So that's the contingency, but
Yes,
I still
contingency.
think it's important to get the board the model.
Yes.
Okay? Any more questions or comments regarding this?
You can get it to me this evening and before we
Lynn, are you comfortable in voting on this before you see the model? Or would you like to see the model?
I don't think
That's just
Can we,
your committee.
can we table this until tomorrow to vote on this? Let's do that, okay?
Unless your committee feels comfortable.
I would rather the whole board be comfortable with this. This is too big to do that. So let's do that.
if you desire and the committee approves it, then I can look at tonight and we can just say, tomorrow.
I would be more comfortable, Linwood, having just asking again tomorrow if everyone's comfortable after you've all seen this, and then we'll ask for a vote.
It's too strong to say I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't have feelings about it. I just want to look at it. Again, I just want to see what we do.
I think that's enough for me to say, let's wait till tomorrow to vote, okay? All right. Kevin, you got a question?
Yeah, I don't want this to sound critical, but we've been provided documents about 100 and something pages here, and yet these recommendations, which are the most crucial thing that we're gonna be talking about, only showed up today. Is there any reason why we couldn't have seen this before today?
We didn't have the numbers. It wasn't until this week that they met with the architects, and so rather than providing fill in the blank recommendations, that's,
Yeah, we need to
That's all I
post,
got.
we needed to post the item, and we were waiting on finalization.
we can try to do that.
So, Kevin, you bring up a good point. I've had this discussion before. I agree. We need to be getting this stuff long beforehand, and so, we will continue to push that. That's a very fair comment. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna table that till tomorrow. We've been in session for almost 2 hours. I'm gonna say that we take a very quick 10-minute break. We have several things we need to cover between now and a closed session this afternoon. There's a lot of people in this room. It's probably gonna take us 10 minutes just to get out and back in. But I figure there's some people in here about to panic, so let's take 10 quick minutes and we'll come back. We will probably start, if everybody's not back in the room,